Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Leo, CEO of the experience agency, The Flash. Each week, I bring on different business leaders who are doing game changing things. And as we're in this really unique time period of American history, it's really fascinating to talk to leaders who are actually outside of the US. And so I'm so excited to have Bessie Kokalis Pescio, who's VP of Internal Communications at PMI, who's currently in Italy, but normally based in Switzerland. We're going to talk about marketing and brand and what's happening right now and give us a really unique global perspective. It's a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Bessie.
Hi, Laura. How are you today?
Oh, just hanging out, stuck inside as usual. It's a very unusual time here in the US. But even though it's a little bit wonky here in the US, the podcast stays the same. And so the first question stays the same. So, Bessie, what was your first job?
My first job after I finished university was as a linguist. So I was hired as a translator, and my job was to translate medical documents, specifically clinical trials, from French into English.
And was that fun, weird? Are you like, I'm never doing this again? Like, what was the experience like?
It was a lot of fun. First of all, I think it was a relief because I didn't think I was going to be able to find a job after I graduated.
Really?
I studied French literature when I was at university, and of course, you think to yourself, well, how am I going to put my skills to use? And I saw this ad for this job, and I thought, well, let me give it a try. And it was a lot of fun. I learned so much along the way. Had never done anything like that before, and had gone from French literature to something completely technical and a very different world. And no, it was really, really satisfying and exciting, especially as your first job.
Awesome. Okay, so you're a linguist. You get started, isn't that awesome? How do we go from being a linguist fresh out of college to being the VP of communications, of one of the biggest companies in the world? What was that journey like?
Wow. Well, exactly. If you had asked me a few years ago or many, many years ago if I would have ended up doing what I'm doing now, I probably would never have imagined that I'd be doing this job, which I really love. Um, I went from a commute starting as a linguist to every single job that I've had some type of a communications component to it. And I think what I learned along the way is to take advantage of every experience that you have, professional experience, and to continually improve your skills and stay up to date. So after I got my degree in French literature, I then followed up many years later with an MBA. And that gave me a license to dabble into business a little bit more. And that was exciting also. So I found it to be a journey of just continually exploring and expanding your skill set and challenging yourself to do new and different things. And the challenge to move to Phillip Morris International, where I've been now for 15 years, believe it or not. I know that will sound like a long time for a lot of people.
That is a lifetime.
Yes, it sounds like a lifetime, but it hasn't been. It hasn't felt that way. It's felt as if with every new assignment, with every new challenge that I've had, and I've been lucky to have so many different ones and so many just very satisfying experiences working in so many different environments around the world with such great people that you learn how to grow and to thrive with new challenges and new roles.
And so that is interesting because I think, a lot of folks always are like, it is unique for someone to stay at a company for over a decade. What was the reason that you decided to stay for so long? Like, what's been the thing that's kept you going and learning and growing within the organization?
I think that the first thing is the reason that I joined the company. I joined the company when the company was embarking on what is now known as a smoke-free future. So then this was our company's vision to change the product offering that we offer to our consumers and to move from a cigarette product to something that was a much better alternative. And that was a mission that I thought was a unique one. It was one that I wanted to be a part of, and one that I felt that it could really change the face of the industry, of our company, and certainly the lives of consumers. So this has really been the leitmotif for my entire career as I joined Phillip Morris, was to see that through. And I sit here 15 years later feeling, very satisfied to see that we have a product on the market that's doing very, very well. We have consumers that are switching to it. And we're seeing that this new direction is something that our consumers are gravitating towards. And that's very satisfying as a professional. And then along the way, as beyond the vision of the company, what I've found, and I hope that others are finding in their careers, is just the opportunity to seek out different challenges and go and take the risk and jump into them and learn and grow as you're facing those different challenges. So whenever you're with a company that values you and values what you're doing and is also giving you opportunities to grow, I think it's a recipe for success. And I feel I've been very fortunate to have had these opportunities over the years.
That's cool. And, I think it's interesting because, obviously, it's Phillip Morris. And I think, on the outside looking in, some folks may view that, well, you're just a cigarette company. And obviously it's, you all are, aiming towards a smoke-free future by innovating. How have you, especially as a communications person, been able to navigate, helping people understand that, like, you all are changing and you're evolving because it is not only just the right thing to do, but you want this from a business. It made good sense for you to do it.
I think the most important thing that we've learned along this journey, and one of the things that we wanted to be very clear about, is that we wanted our actions to speak louder than our words, and we wanted to be able to demonstrate very clearly and tangibly what we were striving for. And I think that as a communicator, when you have a product, when you have the science, when you have the technology, all of the ingredients that are needed, as well as consumer acceptance, that gives you a great platform as a communicator to build on, and then to expand and to build your voice, your credibility, and your reach with the right audiences. So it's been a journey where I believe that we've been rediscovering our voice as a company, and we've been able to do that by thinking very carefully about what it is that we have to offer to our consumers and to public health.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's like, it's funny because, like, obviously you're in Europe and I'm here in the US, but and because the world is tiny, one of my first jobs in advertising was actually working for a competitor, Phillip Morris, RJ Reynolds. And it was interesting because, I found the work fascinating because it was so challenging to, push a brand to do something new. And to see that how far, head and shoulders above PMI is, it's a testament to what happens when a brand actually wants to make the change versus feel that they're being forced to make the change.
Yeah, I would say so. It's as you say. I think that there needs to be something concrete. It's not about an advertising campaign. It's more about having something substantial to offer that differentiates you, that differentiates your brand, and that gives you a platform to talk about your brand in a new and a confident way to those consumers, and to have conversations that perhaps didn't exist before, or that maybe were even taboo and weren't on the radar screen for the general public and for others. So it's really exciting to be able to craft something new and to build that, and to see the impact that it has on the audiences that you're trying to reach. So as a communicator, it couldn't be a better challenge or a bigger challenge to have.
And it's so true because you think about it and you're like, okay, like what can I do? And now we have to actually talk about what we're doing in a way that doesn't feel like we're trying to sell you, but we're communicating how we're evolving at this unique particular moment. So everything's warm and fuzzy. You're doing really well, and then a pandemic hits. And so you're obviously based in Switzerland. What was that like, working with your teams? I don't think, I haven't really talked to anyone who's been in Europe during this time of COVID. So how has that sort of reshaped how you communicate with your teams and and navigate as a result of this?
Sure, absolutely. And for a company like ours and many other big multinationals, it's a very complex exercise. I mean, we were, as many of us around the world were watching, where the pandemic generated and then the impact it was having around the different parts of the world. So it was really a question of understanding what was happening, what the impact was going to be, and then how are we going to communicate to our teams. So the biggest change that we've seen internally as a result of this of the pandemic has first been a heightened focus on the safety and security of all of our employees around the world, and making sure that they have the information that they need when they need it to understand what's going on and to understand what they need to do. So we put a tremendous focus on that. And getting that message out globally to the teams across PMI. I think the second thing that we've seen is many big companies, and this is more from an internal communications perspective, is that we're seeing the rise of virtual leadership, and we're seeing the democratization of the organization. We're seeing hierarchies going out the window and more direct communications that are being facilitated by the technology that we now all have at our fingertips, Zoom or Teams, choose whatever your tool may be. So that's been just great to see how that technology has brought the organization together, and how the pandemic has also helped to rally our employees to keep our business running, to keep everyone, each other safe, and at the same time to contribute to the communities in which we work. So we're seeing employee engagement at very high levels across the company, because people are not only looking out for themselves and their families, but also for their communities. And for a company like ours that operates in so many different parts of the world, to see what we can do in those parts of the world is really, really gratifying as a company. So it's really been surprisingly a rallying point for our company.
Wow. I think I think it also takes a testament to leadership, because if folks can feel that they can step up and they can be leaders, that comes, that's up from the top. And for you, like, how has it been for you to sort of adapt as a leader personally? Because obviously everyone had to go home, but then also you guys were in Switzerland, so the response to the pandemic has been greatly different than here in the U.S. How was that for you?
Well, I think for myself and with my team, which is all everyone is based in Switzerland, and of course, like many of us around the globe, we're all used to seeing each other every day. But what we quickly became accustomed to was doing everything virtually, and that meant having a lot of time to check in with different team members, understand how they're doing, make sure that they felt supported, not only in terms of their work, but also personally. So I think that the job of a leader at this time, in my personal experience, has been about showing the empathy and humanity for the person and the personal situation, and understanding that and putting that first, and then focusing on the work. And I think that that's really important now, because making sure that people have the mindset and the space to work in a comfortable way, and now virtually, is first and foremost. And I think that's one of the most important jobs of a leader. And then beyond that, I think what I've seen across my team and many other teams, and I've heard this from colleagues across the globe, is just the level of empowerment and accountability. And you see teams across the organization stepping up and delivering at a pace that we've not seen before. And that's been accelerated, of course, by the technology. So it's been positive in the sense that we've uncovered new talent. We've uncovered newfound enthusiasm for a lot of the things that we need to do and accomplish as a company. And that's really a result of day in and day out, very active management and leadership on the behalf of people across the company. And I think that that's going to be important for any organization, no matter what the size, as we go forward, because there's so much uncertainty still, unfortunately, ahead, no matter where we are in Switzerland or elsewhere.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting, it's kind of the undiscovered gems that end up popping up in ways that you don't, and you never would have thought. Because I know I've seen this a lot, even with myself, is I have actually more creativity when I'm actually home. I've been in New York now since the end of February. It's the longest I've been home in 8 years. I've launched more things in the last 6 weeks than I did in the last 6 years. But I've actually had time to refocus and buckle down and look and see what else is out there and what else we could be doing. So you're right, there is this really unique way of finding these new gems because we actually do have this at home time. And I hope that as we whatever, I don't want to call it our normal, because I think it's it's kind of like BC and AD. It's before Corona, after Corona. But in the after Corona, that level of creativity continues, and we don't take that for granted.
No, and I absolutely, I think that the emphasis on creativity and innovation and different groups working together that were maybe not working together before, different colleagues who are discovering each other's respective talents or projects that they might have been working on and looking at them differently. That's a lot of what we're seeing. And like you, I agree. I think, that's what I think we all hope will continue. It's been one of the unexpected great silver linings of this pandemic, if there is one, is that the level of innovation and creativity that this has stimulated across the organization has been tremendous.
Awesome. It's funny, you think about your career and where you're going to be and what you're going to do, and then we're all, especially for women in business, we're so busy buckled down that we oftentimes don't look back. So for you, what would you tell 25-year-old Bessie?
Wow, that's a big question. I think there's so many things. I think I would tell my 25-year-old version of
tell her.
But
especially with me chatting.
I think one of the things that I learned along the way, and it came from one of my bosses. This was many years ago. He and I were having a conversation, and I said. He said, well, now you're going to be moving on to a new role. And one of the things that you're going to really need to do is to think about how are you going to sell yourself? And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, that's going to be really important. And I'm an introvert by nature. It's just not my thing. And I said, okay, well, that's really important. And I think that for women who are listening and young women who are early in their careers, understanding what your strengths are, understanding the value of those strengths, and being able to express them and communicate them clearly to those, to your audiences, internal or external, is paramount. And I think that having a regular inventory of what that skill set is, what you're learning, and how you can promote the great things that you're doing is really important, because you need to be your own champion. I think that's the way I would phrase it. Those were my boss's words, but my words are more about, be your own champion and learn how to sort of get people's attention about all the great things that you're doing, and do it purposefully and with the right intention.
I think that's so important, especially for women in business. And, I think oftentimes we say this, it doesn't get hammered home enough. And so, it's so good to hear you say it. And also, again, globally, you're not here in the US. And it's crazy that, like, the same theme goes across the world. It's like, women, will you please stand up for yourself and say how awesome you are? Please.
It's universal, right? It's a universal theme.
It is it's insane to me that this has become this universal theme that, like, we literally need to tell you all, like, if no one is going to clap for you unless you clap for yourself. And so that's not bragging, that's not being too ambitious. Like, there's a big thing happening here in the US right now around an article talking about how one of the potential vice presidential nominees is quote unquote too ambitious, and how you would never say that about a man. And it's one of those things where it's like, if that's what they say, that's what they say. I'm not going to keep moving and do the best I can. If people think I'm too ambitious, that's their problem, not mine. Because the right people who want me for my ambition, from talking about my strengths, will actually be the ones I end up working with. I think that's just so very important, and especially at this particular moment, where I think a lot of times, because you can't have those bigger moments to sort of step up because we're all kind of home, that if you can find ways to be your own champion in this very unusual virtual world, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy, like you said, and no one. I think that, as you go forward in your career, or as anybody goes forward in their careers, I think that it's never a linear path, and you're always going to have obstacles in your way. You're always going to have new challenges. Some of them are going to be positive, some of them are going to be negative, and being able to have that resilience but still continue your path forward. Like, as you said, if you're ambitious, like, be ambitious and do it purposefully, and don't lose sight of your goals. Because if you lose sight of your goals, counting on somebody else to chart that path for you, you may be lucky if that happens, but it really comes down to individual accountability for your career, right? And what you want and what you're looking for. And I think that that's something that's important to understand, especially today, is, what are those opportunities? Try to seize those opportunities, the opportunities to learn, to grow, to learn from different people that you meet, whether they share your point of view or they don't share your point of view, and make that something that can help you to grow.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting, you think about all the growth that we've all done. And I think, especially for us in the kind of creative and marketing and brand field, it's been this very unusual time, and it's super crazy and stressful. And I think for a lot of folks, it's like, okay, how do I sort of maintain this balance? And so I'd love to hear, what are you doing for your self-care, Bessie?
Wow. Well, I think that is such an important point, Laura. I'm so glad you asked me. Personally, I'm a jogger, so I love to run. So I make sure that I run daily. I make sure that, even in the summer heat right now in Italy, which I shouldn't be complaining about, because I'm glad to be in Italy. And also, having the time for mental breaks, whether I personally, I like to meditate. And I know that everybody has their own way of recharging their batteries. And I think that the most important thing that I've learned over the course of since this pandemic has hit is the importance of taking care of yourself. So whatever, for me, it's jogging and meditation, and having time to have a real break from being in front of the computer screen. And that's paramount, because I think that taking care of yourself first is really important, and it's a condition to being able to then give you more of your energy and more of yourself to your personal and family and friends and all of your network, and to your team at the office.
It's interesting. It's fascinating to me, but it's also very heartening to me, because started asking this question over a year ago, so well before the pandemic hit. And I was always curious to see what was going to happen with all the leaders I was in view now that we're in the middle of this unusual pandemic. And I have been fascinated to see how everyone's putting mental health as like the first thing when I ask this, um, because it's a shift and it's a good shift, and I'm glad to see it's happening because I think 3 or 4 years ago, leaders, especially female leaders, may not have said that, like, I'm putting my mental health first. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to like take a break, because we were in this sort of go 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 go, whether U.S. globally, wherever you, but that was where we were at, and now there is it's been this sort of renewed understanding that that just leads to burnout. That just leads to you ending up falling apart, not being a good leader. But the openness to share that, you've got to take care of yourself. You have to sort of find a way to break away and not be trapped in front of Zoom all day is so very important at this moment so that we can all survive it. Because, a lot of times people are saying, well, everything's just new normal. Like, well, no, we're living through a pandemic. Like, this happens once every 100 years. And so how you respond is going to have to be a little bit different just because of the nature of the unusual time that we're in.
Right, right. And everybody has their own their own solution for what works for them. But carving out any time, if even if it's starting with 15 minutes or half an hour a day to do what makes you happy and helps you to recharge your batteries, that's a great start. And the important thing is being able to maintain it and over the long haul, because as you say, we don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. So having some type of a routine is going to be really important.
It's so very important. I tip my hat to you that you're able to jog every day. Like, because I'm on the exercise almost every day now. I will say that. I have gotten to almost every day I am exercising. I bought a bike. As a New Yorker who buys a bike, that's insane. But I was like, well, outside fresh air, that will be good.
Yeah, why not? Sure.
Because it's nuts. But you actually are in Italy right now. And so how's that been? Because obviously we also the news about how the pandemic hit Italy.
Yes.
And it was heartbreaking. You've been there for a little while now. Like, how's that been? Like, what's happening there right now?
Well, as you said at the outset of the pandemic, I mean, Italy and the northern part of Italy, and specifically the Lombardy region, which Milan is part of, was the hardest hit, and that was very dramatic for the country. And throughout the pandemic, what we've seen here in Italy, and what I've been observing from afar, is that they took a situation that was quite unmanageable and very difficult at the beginning, and really brought that under control. Now you walk around the streets here in Italy, and there's still a lot of precautions in place. I mean, everyone wears a mask in outdoor public places. Social distancing rules are in force, and people are careful. They're careful and they're mindful of one another's security and safety, not only their personal security, but respectful of others around them. And so I think that what you see here and what I felt here is that the solidarity of the people and the Italian people of beating this and of getting out of the very difficult situation that they're in has been, very inspiring. And we've seen other examples of that across Europe as well as other parts of the world too. But there's still a lot of caution, but you start to feel like things are coming slightly back to normal, or the new normal, if you will.
Awesome. Unlike here in the U.S., where we're the separated states of America, it's like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. We're like, okay. Other parts of the country, not so much. But that sort of shared sacrifice and solidarity is necessary for something like this. it's great to hear that Italy's coming back on. Like I got to go there last. I was in Florence last year, and it was a beautiful, beautiful time. And I want to go back, but getting on a plane is scary for me right now.
Beautiful place. There's just too few American tourists right now. So hopefully that will change. Maybe that will change soon. We hope.
Definitely. Fingers crossed. We will get back to having all the cheese and all the pasta, because that's literally all the days when I was there last year. So it's funny. In work and business, it is hard to oftentimes to figure out, like, how did I get to this point? So thinking about it, where do you think you're going next? Like, where do you guys see PMI in the next year or so? Like, what's next for you all?
Well, I think that for our company, I mean, we're definitely very, very much focused on continuing on the very ambitious path that we're on to continue to bring our smoke-free products to as many consumers around the world that we can, and be able to inform them and provide them the information that they need to make a better choice should they wish to do so. And I think that that's where our communications will be focused as well. When we can communicate, because obviously there are certain parameters regarding our communications overall. So I think that's where we'll be, and it's in a very exciting time for our company. It's a very exciting time to see what's happening and to see that the impact that we're having as a company. I think that internally, we're also, if I reverse it and I say, well, what's happening internally at our company, I think that this is a time of great change and great opportunity also for our company. And what I'm hearing from employees is very encouraging in terms of the types of opportunities that the smoke-free vision has given to many employees. It's an opportunity to do things differently, an opportunity to bring in new talent, new skills, and learn from others. So it's very much an entrepreneurial feeling around the entire company. It's very exciting.
Awesome. And that's a testament again to, like, how you pivot, grow, change, and look towards the future versus, hey, we have to stay this one way. Like, no, you don't. You can always be innovating and finding new paths within an organization. So that's awesome to hear. So, my last question is, do you have a give and or an ask of the audience? So this can be anything. So this would be like, here's a really great book recommendation, or I would love for you all to, take care of yourself, like whatever you want. So what would that be for you?
Wow. Okay. Great question. Sure. I have a give, or maybe
both.
more a get, more of a get. What would I'd like to ask? I'd like to ask the audience, especially all of those communicators that are out there, to think about communication and the influence that we can have, particularly in today's environment. I think that we see trends where people are becoming more and more entrenched in their beliefs and their ideology. And that has certain ramifications, as we all know. And I think that as a communicator, and for any communicator that's listening, it's important for us to think about how we can stimulate critical thinking, how we can stimulate a constructive dialogue, how we can consider different points of view, and do that in a respectful way. And that would be my biggest ask, especially with so many other important global issues that we're facing, as well as the many important issues that are that the U.S. is facing currently. That we think about how can we use our communications to provoke a conversation and to think about things differently, and to change minds, and to do it in a constructive way, to have that dialogue and not just remain entrenched in our own personal views and ideology.
That is a really incredible ask, and so necessary because, oh my God, the noise is so loud and so partisan, and that you can't get in a word edgewise, and discernment is key with regard to people being able to communicate and understanding and knowing who your audience is. So thank you for telling our audience that, Bessie. um, Please listen, because I think that's so key. Well, Bessie, it has been such a delight to have you on the show.
Likewise. Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Laura. I really appreciated having the time with you today. Thanks for squeezing me in.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's always cool, especially when someone's not in the U.S., to hear what's happening from a global perspective is just so very important. So thank you so very much. And we'll put some information in the show notes to reach out to Bessie and say hi as she's hanging out in Italy. And if you can travel, go to Italy. They need the tourism, please, because I want to go back next year and eat all the cheese. So I want Italy to still be there.
We'll still be here. And I wish you well in New York too, Laura, and hope that you're enjoying that new bike of yours too.
Yeah, it's cost a fortune, so I'm riding it every day now. All right, and that is our show.